with screenings of the film in the future, that it might be possible to get some kind of producer or production company on board to try and help resolve all those licensing issues. Just can't really get any further until that's done.
But in the meantime, that's it. You won't be able to watch it again.
Wait, you can nip down the Phoenix. Yeah, that's it for now. Yeah, the plan is that the album will come out in January, and then yeah, a DVD would follow.
Has Mrs. Judd seen the film?
She only just saw a few excerpts. She came down to the exhibition, like I mentioned yesterday, and when she saw the bit of her in the street running across the road with the frozen peas, she absolutely creased up in hysterics. And then the little bit with the Judd band and her son being there, and her son's on the drums, and he was just hiding his face in sheer embarrassment. It was excellent. They roared with laughter when they saw it. But they've been only to see little excerpts, but they're coming to Bob on Friday to see it.
How did you first see the project? I haven't heard his name before.
Well, I bought a little Castle, Castle 7-inch that you see, the Electronic Sounds and Music one. It's not dated, and it's just FC Judd. And I bought that in the 90s sometime, and didn't really. Well, it's very hard to find out anything more about him. So I knew he was an early electronic music maker. And then the electronic music catalogue, New Davis one, there's a list of all the electronic music studios around the world. That's from 1968. So he's listed in there, several of his compositions, as are quite a few other obscure British electronic music makers. One of which I'm hoping to do a project next year. Probably not film, but something. And another archive album is Ernest Burke. That's something I'm working on at the moment. So yeah, that's where it is.
How long did it take you to put it all together?
Well, I started at the end of 2009. I found an email address for Peter, the son, and he put me onto his mother. And then I spoke to her on the phone just before Christmas 2009. And when I spoke to her, I thought, well, what am I going to say? There's no point ringing her up if you're not going to say you're going to do something. So I said, oh yeah, I'll make a film then. And then I put the phone down and thought, oh, lummy, I've got to make a film now. And yeah, I've never really made a documentary before. So it's taken, yeah, sort of 2010 it was kind of underway. And I sort of knew fairly early on that it was going to be quite long. And that I didn't really want to have interviewees on video in the film. I did a few interviews, one with the current editor of Practical Wireless magazine in Bournemouth. I interviewed Mrs. Judd. She couldn't really remember that many facts, particularly. And I also interviewed Andy Partridge from FCC on the phone, because he was a big Space Patrol enthusiast. Although he doesn't acknowledge any emails I send him anymore, for some reason. I don't know if he's brand offered me for something, I don't know. But he didn't know that I didn't use his interview, because he hadn't seen the film. So yeah, it's taken a couple of years, on and off, to do it.
You're the director of the film,
So,
so I can get your name again.
Ian.
Yeah. I'm going that now. Did any of Mr. Judd's sounds actually go into the early Doctor Who before it was reissued?
No. But he did. He does appear in the Tomorrow People. From that first EP, the one that I bought, there's a track called Cosmos, and I just noticed a year ago that I was watching some Tomorrow People as it happened first in the series, and yeah, he's in the Medusa strain, it's always called. There's one of the Tomorrow People floating around in space, and then there's a bit of French music for that. But no, it's very hard to actually pinpoint what other programs his music would have been used in. But the Studio G library music label is there to make available these library sounds for producers and films to use. So his sounds from that Studio G album. I think eight tracks are on there. They could be in all sorts of programs from that time, especially.
Jerry Anderson was mentioned. Did any of his work go into the Thunderbirds Go?
No, that was all Barry Gray. Because Fred says that he only ever appeared on the BBC, never did any work for them, they never commissioned him to do anything. He only broadcasted on Radio 3, Network 3 as it was. So I think he was a little bit peeved that BBC was something of a closed shop. He visited the Radiophonic Workshop and he wrote an article about it, but it was not accessible for anyone who wasn't actually working on the BBC programme.
So much of their equipment really is based on what FC Judd started with, but it's not attributed to.
Well, no, I mean, he's not the only one that's making electronic music and making his own equipment. And they would have bought their equipment from different manufacturers and used gathered together lots of equipment that was actually at the BBC itself.
I mean, the ideas.
Well, again, those ideas are kind of in the air all around the world, starting probably, well, at the end of World War II. Louis Barron in America, they had one of the first tape recorders available in 1948. Obviously in France, Germany, and in various other countries, electronic music was happening, but that doesn't mean to say that all those electronic music makers were aware of all the other people doing it. They were probably just working away, especially someone who wasn't in a major studio, just working at home. They would just be working on their own things.
They would have read his articles.
Oh, well, that's obviously in the film. That's one of the things I'm trying to get across in the narrative, that he was one of the few people that was actually trying to disseminate electronic music across to amateurs who were working at home, and that's one of the things to me that made him really quite unique. And it was a sort of story that I felt that hadn't really been told probably before. I mean, I didn't really until I started to work on the film properly. That kind of amateur electronic music making, encouraging people to work with their tape recorders in a creative sort of way, was something I hadn't really considered and never read about in any electronic music books. Because there's a conventional historical narrative that says electronic music started with the musical crête in Paris and the Cologne electronic music in Germany, and it's very much a fixed kind of story. And anything as complex as electronic music is, the whole house, all sorts of narratives and history is never going to be definitive. So obviously there are more stories to be told.
That last piece, the butterfly, did you manage to get any accounts of what that sounded like, or
no,
information on it?
no. I was hoping that maybe someone would hear about the project and say, yes, I attended one of Fred's lectures and I was inspired to do something, or I bought one of his Castle records or something, but that didn't really happen. Although I did get an email from his granddaughter, I believe, just a few weeks ago. She's coming to Barking on Friday. But it would be, I did try and contact people, and I did put some posts up on the radio forum. Someone, actually one of the Amateur Tape Club members, I got an email from one of those, and he said he went to, I think, one of the audio fairs and bought a record off him. I couldn't remember which one, and that was the extent of his experience with Fred Judd. Not that helpful.
It seems quite weird that he didn't end up working in the Radiophonic Workshop. Why was he excluded?
It wasn't that much such that he was excluded. It was that they had their own unit, the Radiophonic Workshop, their own set of composers. They were doing their particular jobs, the programs that needed music to be made of them, and they did them. So anyone who had their own little home studio was nothing really to do with Radiophonic Workshop. A separate thing. But yeah, like I say, he's not the only electronic music maker who's working independently on his own compositions. There are quite a few others. I'm hoping maybe next year, if it's possible, to do a little A to Z book of British electronic music makers up to 1970, which I think is quite a feasible little little publication, like a little compendium. So any from David Allen up to Peter Zinoviev, you can flick through and then find, yes, well, there was Donald Henshelwood did a piece in 1961, and then as much biographical information as I can get. Maybe a little radiophonic workshop chapter. And I've been trying to find some amateur composers, and I have found one. I have actually a 7-inch record. It was a demonstration record made by Telefunken, and it's got Ralph Broom did a piece called Atom One in 1961. It's an amateur electronic music maker. Brilliant electronic music track. So there are maybe tapes out there somewhere we have to discover. I mean, that's the thing about working on this, just listening through Fred's old tapes, just like listening to this one this afternoon. It is a fascinating thing to find out and hear these long lost, undiscovered pieces of music.
The piece where the music was the Tom Disabel piece towards the end of it, and the visuals for it. Yeah. That was the way he did it. He literally did those visuals for that particular piece of music.
That's not exactly clear whether he did actually use those tracks and fed them into the chromatron or not. But that was definitely, they were the pieces of music on the associated reel-to-reel tape that came with the cine film. But they were really badly recorded, or well, or the tape had just deteriorated. So luckily I had those tracks on the CD, so then I was able to sync them up with the actual film. So I'm going to show the complete drum sonics on Saturday at Phoenix, 7:30. There's a free event on at Phoenix, and there's some live electronic music, and then I'm doing some screenings of sound visualization films in one of the rooms at Phoenix. It'll be in two halves. So I'm showing the Fred Judd, showing Norman McLaren, and film from Finland, Loki Kirinimi, and then I'm showing a program of my shorts, which are all like the second film, the short one, some kind of sound visualization or graphics generating sound.
Tell me, is this the actual film running through a projector here, or is it a video copy of it?
Yeah, it's video. I mean,
I kept wishing somebody would focus properly. It's a pinch on. With this video copy, of course.
Maybe have a word with the technician afterwards and take him to task about that.
I used to project films for television centre.
Well, yeah, I mean sometimes the definition of video is not
video
as
copy,
good as
you
film.
can't do anything about it. It's done.
Yeah, you've seen it. That's it.
Yeah, thanks.
So does any video exist at all?
Any video?
In a demonstration?
Yeah, it would be brilliant to find out that video show for the Walthamstow Tape Recording Club. It would be amazing if that actually existed. And even those Wes Grove video recorders, whether anyone has got those or not, I don't know.
Does that apply to the RCA synthesizer? Does that exist?
Yeah, it does. I did make a few inquiries about that, and it still is in the Columbia Princeton Electronic Music Centre. It's still there, but it's just all covered in dust and not working properly because it was vandalised some years ago. Someone broke in and then just sort of smashed up with it. And it seems quite incredible, really, because generally in America they've got so much more money to spend on those sorts of things, and the fact that it's so important. A piece of equipment in the history of electronic music, it does seem pretty remarkable that they haven't tried to actually restore it and get it working again. Because there's some of those technicians are still alive. And Milton Babbitt, who saw it just briefly in the film, he died quite recently, but there's still some people that helped to build the machine to get it working and still around.
Yeah, interesting to hear.
Yeah, because it's just it's an incredible machine.
So would he kind of be aware of the synthesizer, and he was a kind of parallel time he was producing his own personal.
Well, I think because I think Fred wouldn't have been aware of Moog or Don Buckler at all. I would have thought at that time at very early 60s. Although in his electronics and music book in the early 70s, he's talking about different synthesizer manufacturers, including EMS as well in Britain. But the the RCA synthesizer was so much ahead of other machines at this time. Although I know that had antecedents as well. The teleharmonium at the end of the 1890s. So history does go back a long way.
Do you know anything about the operating principle of the video recording, that they were saying that it was recording visuals onto quarter-inch tape?
Yeah, because it didn't have the helical. It didn't have that. So the quarter-inch tape had to run at really high speed to accommodate.
Speed, but do you know what speed it was?
It was. I don't really want to guess because it was. Yeah.
So more than 60 inches.
Worryingly fast. I think that could only record like a 10-minute program on a pretty big spool, I think. But yeah, it'd be brilliant to see one of those.
Yes.
See what the quality would be like.
It's possible all this equipment somewhere out there. I wonder if, maybe it needs a website or somebody to sort of inquire and come up on where all this equipment's gone.
Yeah,
It's all been broken up. Maybe somebody's got it somewhere.
Perhaps.
People got collectors around the world.
Oh, sure, yeah, there are various people.
We want to do all back to the position of a place like the sound recording.
Yeah, but there's a radio museum, and I think there's several radio museums around the country. So, maybe there are some collectors out there.